Is there anything resembling a sibling rivalry, or is it very supportive?
No, no, no. We joke around that I'm the third fastest Holmgren now, which is true. But no, there's no rivalry.
The big brother has to take the heat, though, has to take the ribbing, I guess.
Sometimes.
Welcome to the Canadian Cycling Magazine podcast. I'm Matthew Pioro, and with me is Matt Hansen.
Hello. And who else is with us?
Terry McCall is here. Hey, Terry.
Hello.
Our mountain bike editor, Terry, is joining us because, well, this is a mountain bikey episode. So we want Terry here for his expertise and great chats all around. We're going to talk about a surprise that came at the recent cross-country World Cup in Novo Mesto in the Czech Republic. After that weekend of racing, it looks like a pair of siblings are going to represent Canada at the Olympics. In this episode, I speak with Gunnar Holmgren and Isabella Holmgren. Those are familiar names to listeners of this pod. We'll hear about their recent achievements and what could lie ahead for them this summer. But first, Terry is going to give us a bit of background on the qualifications for the Olympics among Canadian riders, those mountain bike riders who want to get the 2 spots available to Canada at Paris for mountain biking. Actually, before we get into a list of names, Terry, or some names that is, why is it 2 spots for Canada? Why only one men's and one women's spot at the mountain bike competition in Paris?
Well, that gets into the way mountain biking is selected and qualified for the Olympics, which is a bit of a confusing process. Basically, there's 2 parallel qualifications running at the same time, one for the country and one for the athletes. For both of those, it's a 2-year window. But basically, Cycling Canada didn't get enough points for us to have 2 athletes in Paris for men or women. That's the first time for the women and second time following Tokyo for the men.
So is it up to Cycling Canada to accrue those points, or is it up to riders to chase these points around the globe?
Hot topic. But a different topic for a different podcast.
All right, fair enough. Yes, it is a bit inside baseball, inside cycling, and it is a bit tangled for sure. In the lead up to Novo Mesto was the final race in that 2-year window you mentioned, Terry. And how did things look on the women's side in terms of who was in the right position? I don't even know what to call it. Who seemed likeliest to go at the start of the race? Can you just give us a picture of who some of the players were?
Okay, well, for sure. There's no real front runners. Like for the athletes, it's a 2-year window from Novo Mesto in 2022 through to Novo Mesto 2024. And your best result anytime in that window. You could have that result the first race or, like Isabella and Gunnar, the last race. So as much as there's people that were in line to qualify, there isn't really any front runners per se. But there were a list of athletes that had met some of the criteria or were really close to doing so. Jen Jackson was really close on a couple chances. Emily Johnson had a podium in the under 23 racing that put her in position to potentially go. For Isabella Holmgren and Maren Lowe, this was their first chance to qualify after graduating from juniors, where they were on the podium finishing first and second in the Junior Women's World Championships last summer. So while they were maybe not on a lot of people's lists, this was their first chance to really show that they could do anything.
And then on the men's side, who are the main players or the main riders who were looking to qualify for Paris?
Yeah, so on the men's side, things were a little bit closer. Carter Woods had put into a couple of solid podiums and wins last year as an under 23, while Gunnar Holmgren was close last year. But really, Novo Mesto was his last chance to deliver an elite result that would qualify him.
All right, Terry, thank you for that background. That sets us up really nicely for the conversations I had with Gunnar and Isabella. In the lead up to these conversations, actually in the lead up to Nova Mesto, Terry, you've been doing a lot of work looking at the selection documents and trying to explain to fans and readers everywhere just how the selection process works. If you look at the Cycling Canada document, it is, well, not too bad, but you know, it takes a bit of interpretation to look at and go, okay, this is what they're talking about. Matt, I'm sure you've looked at the road side as well. I feel like, I dare say, the mountain bike criteria are a little more clear than the road, or at least a little more specific than the road. Unlike the mountain bikers who have to achieve a certain result during a certain window, the roadies, we'll put it this way. Let me just grab from the document here. The team leader for the road race will be named based on their demonstrated ability to perform in the races that have, in the expert opinion of the nomination panel, a similar level of competition distance, technical demands, and profile as the 2024 Olympic Games. See Appendix B. What is it looking like in terms of how many spots Canadians got for Paris?
So on the women's side, there's 2 total. One of whom for the road race, and then one of whom will do the time trial. And the men's, it's 2, but then both can do the time trial.
So right, on the women's side, it's 2 places, and 2 women race in the road race, and one of those 2 will also be in the TT. But on the men's side, we have 2 men, and those same 2 will do both events, road and TT. Is that right?
Yeah.
All right. Now, it's interesting to me, like I spoke with Michael Woods just before the Giro, and he's keen on going to the Olympics. I know he's definitely an Olympics fan. I would blame his running background for that. He's keen on going, and he thinks that course suits him. But I think Denmark, based on what they're looking at for the team for Paris, is thinking it suits a different type of rider. Correct me if I'm wrong there, Matt.
They are banking their hopes on Mats Pedersen. But at the same time, I mean, remember, even if Woods was thinking about punchy climbs, I mean, Pedersen can also go up Flanders-like climbs pretty fast, right? But, you know, the elevation in the Paris course is not exactly, I think personally, the course that would suit him. I'm sure he'd have a fine result. But whether or not Woods would be kind of the man that's going to go for a medal there, I don't know if that's hilly enough for him. I mean, like, Jonas Vingegaard isn't going. The climbs just aren't long enough.
It'll be interesting as we wait for the official announcement, which will be in the last week of June. That's when we find out officially who is going on the road and on the track. And on the track, there should be a whack of riders because for this Olympics, Canada has qualified for all the disciplines, which is exciting, on the track. And we will find out who will represent Canada on the mountain biking side. Now, we're being super careful about how we're discussing the Holmgrens and their likelihood of being in Paris this July because we have to wait for Cycling Canada's official seal of approval or official announcement, I should say. There is an appeal process that happens and is going on as we speak. So all this stuff has to happen in the background. However, the reason I spoke with Gunnar and Isabella is that they've met the necessary criteria, and it's a pretty amazing story about just how everything came together on that weekend in May in the Czech Republic. So let's now hear from Gunnar Holmgren, and after that, Isabella Holmgren, his sister. Gunnar, welcome back to the Canadian Cycling Magazine podcast, and congratulations on your recent ride at Nova Mesto in the Czech Republic. That ride, and your 8th place finish there, is one of the best elite men's results by a Canadian in the past 5 years. It also means you've met Cycling Canada's highest criteria for selection for the Paris Olympics. So what that means is it looks like you're heading to the Olympics. We'll get into why I'm phrasing things carefully like that and not saying, hey, you're going to Paris. But let's look back before we speak about flights to France's capital in July. And not only that, I should add to this story, which is pretty fantastic, your sister Isabella has already been to Paris to check out the cross-country course, and we'll get into that too in just a second. But looking at Nove Mesto, you were in the top 10 for almost that whole World Cup race, even sitting in third place at times. You've been close to this kind of performance before, but how did it feel to be racing in the top 10?
Pretty awesome. I raced in the top 10 in Les Gets last year in France, going into the last lap, and I made a mistake and flatted. So, yeah, that was, I knew I was capable of that performance, and it was not much time to think about, hey, I'm in the top 10, just fully focused on each moment and getting the best out of myself.
And can you give me a picture of why the race in Nove Mesto was so important? What was at stake for many riders, in fact?
Yeah, it's the last race in the 2-year period leading into the Olympics, where nations collect points to qualify riders. There's 8 nations that get 2 riders, and then the rest get 1 rider, 36 total. So yeah, it's quite selective, and it's a big race. It was my last chance to fulfill any the criteria. So it was my last chance to make it. So quite a bit riding on that one race.
And how was your form before that race? Did you structure your training around Nove Mesto?
Yeah, after the end of the season last year, I looked at the calendar with my coach, and we knew we had to do well in Nove Mesto for sure. Regardless of Olympics, I love it there, and I want to do well anyway. So it seemed like a good place to have a little peak in form. It's definitely been a build up from the beginning of the season, getting better and better each race. And yeah, it was well timed, I think. But the main goal is still the Olympics. So yeah, a little peak here, but we're still building towards hopefully an even better performance later on in the year.
So how were you feeling as you rolled up to the start line with all this in your mind?
I wasn't really thinking about that actually at all. I was just thinking about what I was going to do as soon as the lights went green. It's not really helpful to think about everything that's happened or worrying about what's going to happen. Just think about getting in your pedal and try and avoid any crashes off the start. That's probably the most stressful part, especially in Nove Mesto. It's so fast going over that first bridge. And yeah, just focusing on getting into the rhythm as soon as possible, clean start, having a good race.
That makes a lot of sense because also in your race, there was a crash not far after the start line. So that just shows how fast and argy-bargy that race starts out.
Mm-hmm. I had no idea though. I was locked in.
Nice.
I didn't even hear it.
Right on. That was for us at home to see then.
Yeah.
Now, one thing you might have needed to also put out of your mind to focus on the race was something I mentioned earlier, that your sister Isabella has a reason to be looking to Paris. The day before your race, she won the Under-23 Women's XCO event. That puts her in the front running for selection to the Paris Olympics. Even before that, she won the short track event. I'm wondering, what was the vibe amongst the family where not only do you and Isabella race, but Bella's twin sister, Ava, is on a little trek with her, and your father runs Stimulus Orbea, a mountain bike development team. You've joked on this podcast before that the Holmgren Home might be the third unofficial bike shop in Orillia, Ontario. So what was the atmosphere among family members like ahead of your race?
Well, my other sister, Torin, was there as well, working as a chef for our team and a soigneur. So, and she was with me on the start line, which was pretty cool. But the vibe was, I mean, Bella and Ava were 1-2 at Worlds for cross. So that was a pretty big moment. And yeah, with Bella winning, it wasn't not normalized, but like I kind of knew how everyone would react sort of. And yeah, it just like we were all fired up from that. And it only brought good things like towards my mindset for the race. Yeah, it definitely fires you up to see that.
Is there anything resembling a sibling rivalry, or is it very supportive?
No, no, no. We joke around that I'm the third fastest Holmgren now, which is true. But no, there's no rivalry.
The big brother has to take the heat, though, has to take the ribbing, I guess.
Sometimes.
I'm going to switch actually to my view of the race in the Czech Republic for a moment. One of the commentators for the broadcast is Bart Brenchens. When mountain biking first debuted at the Olympics in 1996, Brenchens won gold for the Netherlands. During the Nove Mesto race, to me, maybe, it seemed he had to keep some of his enthusiasm for your ride in check. He's the manager of your team, KMC Ridley MTB Racing, which you started riding for this season. What's it been like working with Bart Brenchens?
It's been pretty cool. It was a big jump to go from mom and dad run North American team to like full setup in Europe. And this was my first race with the full setup with the staff, everyone there. So yeah, it's been really good. Just like your time and energy shifts to different things. You still put out the same amount of effort and energy throughout the week, I think. But yeah, it just shifts towards different things. I could maybe focus a bit more on my performance, which helped a bit. But yeah, it's been cool learning from everyone in the team, not just Bart.
He actually was teased a bit during the broadcast. There were jokes that he had banned you from coffee until you got a top 10. Is there any truth to that?
No.
I'm not
Definitely
surprised.
not. I make the coffee.
Well, see, I thought that was quite shocking and possibly cruel because I know how much you like coffee. In fact, how much coffee did you bring to the race? I know you often pack the coffee you want.
Yeah, I think I just had 2 bags this time, just like 2 small bags. But I only had 1 coffee before the race.
2 bags sounds conservative for Gunnar Holmgren, but you had 1 coffee. I also heard that it was Josh Carlson who made the coffee. Is that fact or not fact?
I did see him making coffee in there. Actually, I think he did make my coffee before the race. That's true. Yeah, I remember that now.
Right. And I'll just say that I like to think of Josh Carlson, even though he's an Aussie, he's secretly Canadian because of all the years he was based in Vancouver, maybe not so secretly Canadian. But returning actually to the team, the new team, you said you could focus on things. Is it having the bigger infrastructure that allows you to not worry about other details that you might have to worry about when you're on a smaller team, that allows you to, say, focus on the race a little more?
Yeah, like we have a mechanic we have a couple mechanics, my sister who is cooking. So yeah, you just spend a bit more time on the smaller details, and it's really like marginal gains. But that's what it is when you're going into the race trying to get a top 10. Like you're splitting hairs between riders at that point. It's so tight, the racing. So yeah, every little bit helps for sure.
Right. So I can imagine that if, say, one rider was up just a little bit later, fussing with a tubeless setup or a rotor rub, then that rider is just marginally less sharp the next day when it comes to race time.
You could say that, but it could also be so many other things. Like, yeah, there's so many more like small decisions you make in a race, accelerating maybe when you didn't need to, or being too conservative when you should have gone for the overtake. Yeah, you can put it to a lot of things, but it does help to have a team that's dialed in around you for sure.
Actually, now that you mentioned the idea of like going pretty hard at a race. It seemed like the Nove Mesto race was really fast from the beginning. How were you managing your efforts, or how were you considering, doling out the power and, when to go hard and when to ease up?
I think that was my 8th time racing Nove Mesto, so I know it quite well, how the race can play out. I didn't know what it was like in the top 10 there, but I knew I had to get there quite early on in the race, and being on it in the start loop is key. Otherwise, you just start losing so much time on the descents, and because the climbs are quite rough and you want to be picking your own line, it's not great to be following super close. Yeah, you just gotta go. It's by feeling, right? The pacing and being in touch with what's going on around you, who's behind you, how many in front. Yeah, I think it probably looked like I was dangling off that group for a bit in the race. I haven't watched it yet, but it was a bit intentional just to be able to have a clear line of sight, pick my lines, go a bit faster on the downhills, maybe save a little bit at the top of the climbs when you're really hurting. Yeah, there's there's a lot of little details.
Definitely, definitely. And what was it like crossing the line in Nove Mesto? How did you feel about the race?
Quite happy. Yeah, kind of relieved that it's over. Just like so excited and buzzing from how I rode. Um, Trying to soak it in. My dad and sister were there, so that was pretty cool to get to see them at the finish line. Yeah, in the race, I didn't have much time to think about anything like that. I could only hear the people I knew around the course, which was weird. Like I didn't hear any of the cheering from the Czech fans or anything. I was so like locked in. So yeah, when I crossed the line and I could like relax for the first time, yeah, like quite a few emotions and just happy. Yeah.
So you mentioned your family was there. It was your dad, and was it Torin or Isabella that was there?
It was Torin. Ava and Bella were on a flight back to Girona at that time.
Wow, busy for those two, for sure.
Yeah.
In September 2023, you rode the Paris test event. You were 5th. What did you learn about the course from that race?
Lots. First of all, we got to look at the features, ride all the different lines, and then when you race a course, you get a better feeling for the pacing, but you also get like a pretty good idea of how the race will play out. You can sort of analyze where you feel stronger than others on the course, maybe a couple weaknesses. And yeah, September last year, we got to go to the drawing board and work on that since then.
I was wondering, can you reveal where it suits your strengths and where you think you might have a challenge on that course? Or is that something you don't want to reveal to possible competitors listening to this podcast?
No, it's okay. It's it's all man-made. So it's a bit, yeah, it's really fast, which I think I enjoy sometimes. And you need to be good at conserving momentum and just sort of being really efficient around the whole course. Some quite punchy climbs, which I like as well. Yeah, I don't know what my biggest strength on that course would be though. So
I heard that there are A and B lines and that they're very similar. In some courses, the A line is obviously faster, but most likely more difficult, technically more difficult. But if A and B lines are similar, could that mean more passing? Or did you even notice, or is my understanding of the lines off? Like, what is your sense of the A and B lines on this course?
yeah, for sure. I think they were just named A and B, not in difficulty, just like this was A, this was B, like line 1 or line 2. I think they're trying to make it as even as possible, but they're so short and there's like a speed limit, and it's really difficult to make 2 lines equally appealing to riders. There's going to be one that's like marginally faster, and we're going to know it when we ride it, or the coach will know it when they're timing people through it. And everyone's going to go for the faster one unless there's traffic. So yeah, there might be like an overtake or two through those lines. I think they've worked on them a bit since we were there, but I think it's still A line, B line. Most people are going to go for the faster one.
So I just want to return to the significance of your 8th place finish at Nova Mesto. What that means with regard to Paris 2024 is that you've met Cycling Canada's highest criteria for selection. So you've, in a sense, checked a box, but some stuff still needs to happen before we officially know who is going to represent the elite men at Paris 2024 for Canada. We're speaking, it's early June, and can you just give us a slight picture of what's going on before we know that, before the official selection has been announced?
There's just a few steps Cycling Canada has to take, like submitting like the athletes, the nominations to the board and everything getting approved and that being sent to the Olympic Committee and everything. But I've started planning around I've been planning around it for a while, like last year. But yeah, like things are put into motion.
And that's a good point. Like, if you are planning to go to the Olympics, you continue to plan to go to the Olympics. If unless there is something, obviously saying no, you got to stay focused on that event.
Yeah, right now I'm focused on what I need to do before then, figuring out where I'll be between the races and where I'll go to train and all that stuff. And that's my job. I'll let everyone else do their job.
For sure. And what does training and racing look like between now and July 29th, roughly?
It's quite packed. There's one weekend off now, and then we go to Val di Sole in Italy for another World Cup. And then it's Switzerland after that, then a week off. Then it's Liège in France. And then I think there's 2 weekends off until Paris after that. So it's pretty full gas, but that's good. Racing's fun, especially here in Europe. I'm excited to be with the team again. And in between the races, I'll be doing some altitude probably just to sharpen up for the big one.
One thing that comes to mind is, and it's in my mind because of a lot of stuff that I've seen on the roadside, is there is sometimes a risk of, it's cycling, so there's a risk of crash and injury. But I'm guessing the merits of continuing to race outweigh what you would gain by, quote unquote, staying safe and off the race course. Is that a fair kind of assessment of what you want to, of why you're continuing to race these World Cups? Or is there something else that's taking you to the races?
Yeah, like there's still the overall, there's UCI points. These races, World Cups are like the best opportunity for UCI points. And yeah, the team has hired me to do well at those too. So yeah, you can't just sit it out in favor for one race. Maybe if you're like Pauline or Pidcock, that's what you do. But for me, it'll just give me more confidence doing those races, just staying like in the zone every weekend almost, like getting into the zone. So then it's easier come time for Paris.
Yeah, that's a good reminder in your answer there. It's that you are on a team, and while this team may support your Olympic ambitions, this is not an Olympic team. This is a trade team, and you have to do your job for that team. So yeah, that makes perfect sense that you're going to continue to race for that team.
Yeah, and just those races will help towards the Olympics, I think. I'll be racing all the other guys going, so.
What then is up for you, possibly, after July?
I have started planning that already, actually. It's never ending. But the World Championships are in Andorra at the end of August, and that's at altitude. So I'll probably be there a bit early, getting acclimatized to that. Yeah, that's August. September, 2 World Cups North America. I'm stoked for that, to be back in Mont Saint Anne. And then you might see me on some skinnier tires after that. We'll see.
Oh, possibly a return to cyclocross, I'm guessing. Or do you mean road? I'm guessing cyclocross.
Off-road.
Wow, very, very coy. Well, that's pretty interesting. Or maybe gravel. It could be gravel. We'll see. We'll wait and see. But Gunnar, thank you for your time. Thank you for your insights into the exciting race in Nove Mesto and what might lie ahead for you. And good luck at all the races you are going to be lining up for in this year.
Yeah, there's lots to come. Thanks for having me on the show. Happy to be here anytime.
Isabella Holmgren, congratulations on your 2 wins at the Mountain Bike World Cup in Nove Mesto. You won the short track event and then the XCO event the next day. But how long did you stick around after the cross-country Olympic event in Nove Mesto?
I actually had to fly home the next morning, so Sunday morning during the elite women and men's race.
The elite women and men's race, and in the elite men's race, your brother was racing, so you weren't even there.
No, unfortunately, I wasn't. I would have really liked to be there to cheer him on, especially since he had such an amazing race. But yeah, got to see him a few days ago. So
there you go. Okay, well that's good. But yeah, I understand the plane tickets were booked before you could hang around or decide to hang around to see your brother. So you left the race, you left Nove Mesto, but you were traveling shortly thereafter. You went to Paris. What did you do in and around Paris?
the day after I got back to Girona, I flew to Paris and I got to ride the Olympic course. So I got to walk it and look at all of the features and then ride it for 2 days. And yeah, it was pretty cool to see the course.
How quickly did that plan come together to go to Paris shortly after Nove Mesto?
Well, it wasn't until after the race on Saturday that it was even a thought, because obviously you have to be in the pool for the Olympic selection to be able to go and ride the course. And before Saturday, I wasn't. So after my race, I had put myself in the pool, I guess, for selection. And then I was able to go to Paris.
That's right. Your result, your win in the under-23 race at Nove Mesto met the highest level of criteria that Cycling Canada put out for Olympic qualification. So your name is at the top of the list at the moment, and we'll get into a few more details about that a little later, and Paris and the course. But before we do that, I want to take a step a little bit back into your season. This is your first season on Lidl Trek, a world team. And how has it been racing at the top end of the road discipline?
Yeah, it's been super cool and very nice. I have a really good team with a lot of very experienced riders, and there's something to learn from everybody. So it's been really cool to just race with everybody on the team and see how things are done on the road. And yeah, just learning and enjoying it a lot.
Last year, you were on Stimulus Orbea for the mountain biking, and you worked with Watersley R&D cycling team for road races. Can you contrast those outfits with Lidl Trek?
Yeah, it's definitely a very big change. Lidl Trek is one of the best teams in the world, so it's done a lot differently. There's a lot more staff, a lot more riders. Not to say that the other teams weren't good or anything like that. But yeah, it's just very different in terms of support and organization and things like that.
You're not cooking your own meals anymore, are you?
No, yeah. My laundry is getting done for me, which is pretty nice. And yeah.
And have you washed a bike this year?
I have washed a bike at my place in Girona, but not on not on race projects or camps or anything like that.
You've raced one World Tour event on the road, Itzulia Women. Demi Vollering won this stage race in mid-May. You were third in the youth classification. What did you take away from that event?
Yeah, it was my first World Tour race, so definitely a little bit nerve-wracking, but I just tried to learn from all of my teammates, but also other riders, and really learn like the tactical side of things. Road racing is so hard. So yeah, just trying to learn as best as I can and help the team as best as I can. But yeah, it was a super fun race, and I'm really looking forward to some more.
You say road racing's hard, mountain biking's hard. How are they different in their difficulties?
Well, mountain biking is you're going as hard as you can for less than an hour and a half, but on the road you never know if you're going to be coasting at the back of the peloton or if you're going to be going as hard as you can to stay on a wheel. I would say the road is just a bit more unpredictable, and like anything can happen in mountain biking, but the road is just very different in that sense. And then you have to get up and race again the next day. Usually in mountain biking, there's just the short track and the XCO. Yeah, I'd say those are the main differences.
It seems you have still been doing a bit of mountain biking around the road riding. Before Orillia, you won a mountain bike race in Spain, and then you took a fat tire win the week before Nove Mesto. Can you tell me more about this mix of road and mountain biking in your schedule?
Yeah, so road is definitely the main focus right now, but we didn't have any racing for a few weekends, so Ava and I were able to go out to the race in Spain, and my sister came with us. That was really just to get a race in the legs on the mountain bike since it's such a different effort. And then we decided very last minute to go to the race in Czech before Nove Mesto, which I'm very glad we did because the course was actually quite similar to the one in Nove Mesto. So it was nice to sort of get the technical skills firing again and get another race in the legs.
I should just add that Ava, your sister, is also on Lidl Trek, and I think you're referring to your other sister, Torin, who was along for those other races. Is that correct?
Yeah, she just graduated university, so she's been staying with us in Girona and helping out at races, and it's been really nice to have her. I don't think we'd be able to do it without her.
So what does Lidl Trek officially think of your mix of mountain and road?
I think they're happy with it. Yeah. I think that they realize that all of the disciplines can sort of benefit the others. So yeah, I think they're happy with it. And I'm really glad that they're allowing me to mix the disciplines because I just really love all of the kinds of biking. So it's been really nice.
And can you tell me a bit about your setup at Nove Mesto? Because you were racing in your Lidl Trek kit, but Lidl Trek did not send a team there to help you out. So can you tell me a bit more about the infrastructure you had in Nove Mesto?
Yeah, so we were being supported by the Trek Factory and the Trek Future team. The Trek Future team was amazing. They had everything dialed in for Ava and I, and they welcomed us into their tent, and we had a mechanic and feeds and everything. It was really nice, and it was cool to be able to do a race with them, especially since there's some fellow Canadians on the team like Ian and Emily. Yeah, it was a really nice weekend, and I'm really glad that we were able to be supported by them.
Yep, that's right. Ian Ackert and Emily Johnston are on Trek Future Racing.
Yeah.
Nove Mesto was the final race for riders looking to qualify for the Olympics. Was Olympic qualification a goal of yours? And if so, when did it become a goal?
Well, for me, Nove Mesto was the only chance for the Olympics because I'm a first year under 23, and that was the only World Cup that was for selection. It was tough because it's hard to make that a big goal when you just have one chance because there's so many things that can happen. You never know if you're going to have a mechanical or crash or something like that. So I wouldn't say that I necessarily made the Olympics my goal, but I made a goal to have the best performance I could on that day and then just race as hard as I could from there.
Right. Because I think I should add that the races in Brazil, if I'm not mistaken, would not have it was important that the race was in Europe to help with meet the criteria for Olympic qualification. Is that correct?
Yeah, I believe for the under 23 category, the World Cup had to be a European World Cup for it to be considered for the Olympics selection.
So let's discuss the race itself in Nove Mesto. You got to the front in the opening loop, and stayed there the whole race. Was that a strategy beforehand?
Well, when the race started, I could hear that there were some crashes behind, and it just seemed super tight and a little bit antsy in the back. So I made it a goal to stay closer to the front, especially going into the technical sections, because if one person makes a mistake, then that kind of puts everyone behind them back a little bit. So yeah, I had good legs, I guess, in the start loop, and then got to the front for the technical section, and then just tried to race my own race from there and go as hard as I could on the climbs, and then try and be a bit more calm on the technical parts, because yeah, I think since I haven't been on the mountain bike too much recently, the technical skills are still coming back to me. So yeah, I definitely wanted to be able to take a deep breath into those sections, and sometimes that's hard when you're following someone or someone's right behind you. Yeah, I would say it was sort of part of the plan to get ahead.
Can you tell us how it was that you got a first row start?
So for the U23s, I think it was new last year that they had the short track event for the under 23 category. So the Friday before the race, the top 40 riders from the under 23 category get to do the short track race, which is just 20 minutes of a, I don't know, 3, maybe 4 minute loop. And that decides the starting position for the XCO, which is the following day. And so the first 3 rows are the top riders from the XCC.
Which you won the day before. So that gave you that excellent position on the XCO race. In the end, what was it like crossing the finish line 2 minutes and 5 seconds ahead of your nearest competitor?
Yeah, it was a pretty good feeling. Yeah, I was happy that the race was done because it was super hard, but yeah, it was nice to cross the finish line and see my dad and my sister there. But yeah, I was just really happy that I had a good race and good legs on the day.
Did it click inside your head that, oh, okay, this is actually really good because of what it meant for Olympic qualification, and that it puts you to the top of the list for being considered for Paris?
Well, not right away, because Jen Jackson has had a really good season so far, and she had a chance to meet a higher criteria on the Sunday. So yeah, I was obviously super excited that I even made it into the pool, because I think that's a really big accomplishment as well. But yeah, I tried to not think about it too much. I was mainly just relieved to have done everything that I could before the Olympics, and that's the deadline. I can't do anything else to try and make it. So yeah.
And your sister Ava, she had actually a kind of a tough race. It didn't go so well for her, did it?
No, she's been having a lot of bad luck recently, which sucks because she always works so hard, but better things in the future, I think, for her.
Yeah, I understand a pedal fell off during her race, so that's unfortunate. What is one of the biggest memories you have in the moments after the race?
I think being nervous to pop the champagne bottle on the podium because I was scared that I wasn't going to get it open.
That's hilarious. Wait, I guess, have you been handed champagne before at any of your other victories?
I think maybe at some cross races in Belgium when I was 16 or 17, which can't happen in Canada, of course, but it's different in Belgium.
For sure. And how did the champagne taste?
I'm not the biggest fan of the taste of alcohol, but I think the champagne was quite good.
Is there anything special about the helmet you wore in Nove Mesto?
It's funny that you mentioned that, actually. I had to I was wearing Ava's helmet because that's why it said A Holmgren on it, because mine was in my suitcase, which had been shipped to the wrong spot, so I didn't have it.
So you had to borrow your sister's.
Yeah, but luckily she likes to wear the Ballista helmet, and I like the Velocis helmet, so it works out perfectly because she has both of them, but she only really wears the one.
I was wondering about that because, I noticed she was wearing the more aerodynamic helmet, and yours is I guess the one that has slightly better ventilation.
Yeah, I like the way the Velocis looks, and it's super light. I mean, they're both amazing helmets, but yeah, I think we just like different ones.
And wait, your suitcase went to the wrong spot?
Yeah, I had a road race before, and then yeah, my suitcase basically was shipped to a different part of Spain, not Girona. And then by the time it would have been shipped back to Girona, we had already left for Czech since we decided to race the weekend before Nova Mesto.
With your win in the Czech Republic, as I've mentioned, you've met Cycling Canada's criteria for an Olympic spot at the cross-country race in Paris. However, there is still some work that needs to be done at the federation level before everything is decided. But at the moment, the two riders who have met the requirements for Paris are siblings, you and your brother Gunnar. What's that like?
It's really amazing. I think going to the Olympics in general is such an amazing thing and so exciting, but the fact that I may be able to do it with my brother is just, yeah, it's crazy. It's more than a dream.
So turning back to the course, the cross-country course that's just outside of Paris, what did you discover from your reconnaissance there?
Yeah, it's a super fun course. There's quite a bit of climbing, lots of gravel, and I can tell that they've done a lot of work to make some fun jumps and berms and things like that. So it's definitely a fun course to ride. There's a few more technical features like rock garden descents. There's a few gaps. It's a super fun course though, and I'm hopefully looking forward to racing on it. That would be pretty cool if that's how it works out in the end.
Is there anything about the course that you're like, maybe I should, if I show up here in July, I need to work on this particular skill or this particular kind of riding?
Yeah, I think back in Ontario, there's actually quite a few good like berms and jump trails close to where I live at Horseshoe. So I think I'll definitely do a lot of work on those, just being more comfortable on the jumps and just trying to be like that 1% faster on everything. And then try and replicate a few of the rock gardens maybe to work on that. But yeah, the course isn't anything extremely crazy technical. It's not like Mount St. Anne. So
Not as difficult as Mont Saint Anne, you'd say.
no, I don't think, I mean, I've never raced that course, but I rode parts of it a few years ago. And yeah, it's quite a tough one.
Interesting. Last year, you won the cross-country world championships as a junior. In Nova Mesto this year, you raced in the under-23 category. Should you take the start line in Paris, you'll be among the elite riders. How do you feel about that jump?
Yeah, I'm actually really excited for it. I think I've looked up to a lot of the riders for so many years, and to be able to race with them would be so cool. And yeah, I think it'll obviously be super challenging because they're the best of the best. But yeah, I think it would be very nice.
You've raced with the top roadies in the world. Will that help you with your move to the top of the XC world?
I mean, I hope so. Yeah, I mean, they're very, very different sports, but hopefully riding with the best on the road will help my fitness so that I can hopefully ride with the best in the mountain bike.
Does road racing do anything for your mountain biking? Or what are the transferable elements?
Yeah, I think mainly the fitness. That's probably the biggest thing. Tactical side of things, possibly. But yeah, mainly fitness.
So what are your plans for the rest of June and into July?
Right now, I'm training for a few weeks in Girona, and then I'll head to Val di Sole and race the World Cup there. And then straight from Italy, I fly back home to Canada and yeah, start some training. I'll do road nationals, and then we'll see about other races. We still have to figure things out and wait for the Olympic selection to be released. But as of right now, that's the plan.
And then beyond July, what does your season look like?
I'll be doing some more road for sure, but yeah, not too sure yet what the season's gonna look like.
Okay, well, Isabella, thanks again for coming on, actually, again, to the Canadian Cycling Magazine podcast, and good luck with all the racing you have ahead this year.
Thank you.
And that's the episode. It's written and edited by me, Matthew Piaro. I had a lot of help from Terry McCall. Thank you, Terry, for all your help on this episode.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And, oh yeah, Matt Hansen, you helped too.
What the hell is that? Oh, yeah, you helped too. I showed up.
You're always here.
Satisfactory at best, as always.
Thank you, Matt. This episode of the Canadian Cycling Magazine podcast is produced by Adam Killick. He did the music too. Also, thank you to Ontario Creates for its support. Matt, listeners know that you love to share your FTP with me, but you have found a new metric to present to me. What was that metric? Something from Strava?
Well, what happened was I don't subscribe to Strava, but the other day I got a KOM and I wanted to see how much faster I did than you.
Oh.
So the only way to do that, well, I wanted to see if you did it, was to subscribe. So I resubscribed. Immediately I saw that you didn't do it. So that was
a good use of your dough, man.
Yeah, I know. But then I had this amazing stat from Strava. I don't know if they're just trying to butter me up, but it said I was 2,600% better, which that's not even a thing. Like, you can't be a zillion times better, like 10 million times better. Like, thanks, I get it. I've been riding a little more, but like, I'm not going to go out with you, Strava. We're not going to date.
Strava is really fishy for compliments, or like really dishing out the compliments, I should say. Wow, you're like a bajillion% better.
I know. I honestly, I actually laughed out loud, but literally, I was just like, oh, come on, Strava. Stop it, you.
Well, I hope you continue to get bajillion times better.
Well, if you went riding with me one of these days, maybe we could see.
Oh, right. Yeah. Sorry, I'm busy. Right now.
Interesting.
Well, maybe you should stop going to all those races. Terry is just listening to us bicker. You must love this. I'm so glad you came out, Terry, to hear us bicker, like in real time instead of on the Slack channel.
Oh, I stopped listening a while ago.
He's the smartest one of all of us.
The moment you started talking about Strava.
Yeah, you're hard to find on Strava, but I hear you've got some actually noteworthy Strava metrics. Anyway, whatever.
And probably photos of dogs too, which is way better.
His dog is a photogenic dog. The star of his Instagram. All right, we have promoted enough different social media platforms in the last 3 minutes. We can stop that now. Everyone out there, thank you for listening. Please rate and review the show. Tell a friend, get them to subscribe, get them to download regularly. We really appreciate it. Ride safely, enjoy your ride, and we'll talk to you later.